we are helping researchers who want to transition to freelance. And it can be a scary thing. And so we try to take some of the fear and difficulty out of it by having educational events like this, learning from those who've done it, like Cory, by helping you strengthen your network, and also by contract job placement, which is what our talent scouts do. So in all those ways, we hope to help make this transition to freelance a little bit less scary. And tonight, we have the opportunity to listen to Cory Lebson, who is a real pro. It's my privilege to introduce him and really thank him for coming to join us tonight. He's got 2 decades of experience as a UX consultant and over a decade as a full-time freelance researcher. So he has a lot of good experience that he can share. For me personally, I just want to thank Cory because he was the first member of our board of advisors for UXR.work and has been an early and consistent champion and supporter and contributor to what we're doing. And I'm just very grateful for his support and encouragement. And with that, let me turn it over to Cory and I'll stop sharing.
Great. Well, thanks, Raymond. So let me go ahead and I will start sharing my screen, or my PowerPoint rather. Share. Okay. How is that? I think it works. Well, great. Well, yeah, thanks for having me today. I'm happy to be talking with all of you. Basically what I want to talk about is, really how to make a freelance life best it can be. It looked from that poll that a lot of you are thinking about freelancing, maybe considering making that leap. So I'll talk a little bit about how I find happiness as a freelancer and what kinds of things I do and what's evolved really. I've been a freelancer since 2008, exclusively. I certainly did. I did kind of on the side gigs before then, but since 2008, being a freelancer has been my only really full-time occupation. So Raymond gave a little bit about me. Basically, I have what I would call a micro business now. There are no employees, but I do have some contractors that I use, basically. But basically, it's just a very, very small business. Like a kind of a boutique business slash freelancing job. Yes, I've got the UX Careers Handbook out there. First edition came out a couple years back. Second edition is coming out early next year. I was actually just reviewing the proof text just earlier today, getting that to the publisher, and then I'll get to see maybe in a month the layout, and there's a whole process with kind of a big publisher. But anyway, that's coming. I've also, I spent a lot of my time in UXPA, being a leader in UXPA, and I'll talk about that a bit and why that adds value, not just UXPA, but any meetup. And also, if you have access to LinkedIn Learning, you can find a number of classes I have there. Some of them are about freelancing particularly. Some of them are about UX careers more generally. I also do, by the way, have, as a LinkedIn Learning instructor, a couple codes, which basically, it's a URL that will give you LinkedIn Learning access for, I think, 3 months. They gave me a bunch of those. I think they still work. If you want one, just you can connect with me, send me a message. And I will be happy to send those out until I use them up. But otherwise, I have nothing else to do with them. I got them, very nice. So happy to send them out as you all want. Okay, so let's just talk about the state of the world. You all know what the state of the world is. It is we are in anxious times. Things are all feel like they're going haywire right now. Since last year, we thought, the numbers going down, COVID, not everything's getting better. This summer, I certainly thought that, and then probably in the last 9 days, It's kind of, well, not really. And that presents kind of this backdrop of, would you want to make a leap, to freelancing? Would you want to, I would actually argue that now is as good as any time to do it. And I will say, actually, when I did become a freelancer exclusively in 2008, you might remember that there was a kind of big financial kind of falling apart, about just a month before, a month after I became a freelancer, was when really things really started to fall apart, in terms of the financial markets, which we're not seeing now. In fact, largely the issue that we have now is COVID. I mean, that's it. It's not a recession. It's not. I mean, the economy is strong. So really, it is kind of, now's as good as any time. But these are anxious times. And as a freelancer, though, people think, it seems to the outside world, that it's all fun in the sun. Oh, I'm a freelancer. I can work from anywhere. Maybe that's true now, and certainly, well, absolutely, that's probably more true now than ever before, for everybody. But we'll talk about whether that's always going to be true. So I do want to come back to that. Let's see. And the reality, I think really is that, being a freelancer, at times I felt this way myself, not too much. But sometimes it can feel very lonely. You think, okay, I'm just going to go and do my own thing, and it's awesome and it's wonderful. But really, there's times when you're saying, well, I've got no colleagues, I've got no friends. I mean, maybe sometimes work can feel that way too, particularly kind of in the isolation of COVID. I certainly don't want to discount that. But simultaneously, I think being a freelancer, and maybe all the more so in COVID in these past 2 years, it can feel very isolating. So I've had time to kind of think through that. In general, I feel like I have found my balance. I found my balance before COVID. Really, even during COVID. I mean, since this all happened, and I was remote a lot, not totally, but I have felt like I found balance. And the truth is, some of what I'm talking about now, it talks about freelancing. But if you're not a freelancer, if you're working in a full-time job, for those most of you in the States, a W-2 job, there are things that you can do to kind of feel better, kind of find your happy place, no matter where you are. Although obviously my frame personally is in that freelancing role. And really, thinking about just freelancing in general, not last year, not this year, but always, am I going to get enough work to keep me busy? Certainly you're saying, well, if I'm going to go off and I'm going to make this jump, to have this freelancing UX role, am I going to be filling my time? And I've heard a lot of, no, I've got a family to support, I've got kids, I've got whatever, and like, I can't do it. And the truth is, like anything, there's risks there are certainly risks in any job. As an employee, you don't know how long things will last, certainly, and there's layoffs absolutely all the time. But there is certainly a level of risk, and there is there is this ongoing concern, and this willingness to take a little bit more risk, kind of in terms of going out and scrambling to find that work. I really have, since 2008, had I had a few really empty periods. Largely I have smaller empty periods, and weirdly enough, the last 2 years have probably ended up being busier than most other years. I always thought it was going to end, and it hasn't. And I have some theories about that and why that has been the case. Largely, I think that if companies are hesitant to hire a full-time permanent employee, and as a UXer, or they can't because they're just, UX professionals are kind of hard to find right now. They kind of say, well, in the short term, I have a project, I need something that gets done, and that's where, I feel like I've kind of come in over these last 2 years. So, let's talk a little bit about that staying busy part. So, essentially my work philosophy is that, I believe in small puzzle pieces. Small puzzle pieces, I think, I personally think are the best kind of freelancing, because basically you certainly could, do, kind of a long-term full-time contract role. But my favorite approach is kind of mixing things up a little bit, is putting those puzzle pieces together in a way that fits, that makes it work. And there's several reasons for that. One is not putting all my eggs in one basket. So I will say, like, I had one monster contract. It became so big that I didn't have employee. Well, I actually did. My wife joined the company briefly, and she actually was an employee for a short time of the company, or by a short time, like 3 years of the company on this one contract. I ended up using multiple contractors. It grew and grew and grew and grew. It was wonderful. I did some other things on the side, but it was still pretty busy. And then one day, it came to an end. It came to an end contractually. There was no choice. There were about 100 contractors, I think, that kind of lost this contract, literally overnight. From the end of September to the beginning of October, was just gone. And after that was I think 2015 was actually my worst year, because I hadn't really paid attention enough to all the other work. I hadn't kind of stoked those fires, kept them going. But since then, really, I've really tried to kind of keep lots of irons in the fire, work with lots of different projects, and it's worked out pretty well for me. That said, it often feels even more risky. So, to the extent that, you have bigger projects available, no harm in taking them, as long as you continue to stoke fires elsewhere. Make sure that you continue to kind of to rev that engine, and find the work, or put out feelers for future work, even while you feel very busy. And as for that lonely reality, in terms of, maybe you're an introvert, maybe you're an extrovert, you see yourself as such, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, that's not what it's about. If you're in UX, if you're interested in UX, you care about people. That's by definition, you care about people. I mean, that's what we're designing for. If you're a UX researcher, you care about people. If you're a UX designer, you also care about people. And people are kind of part of your complete puzzle, and they come in many ways. So, ultimately, I have a blog post, and I feel like I'm actually neither fully an introvert nor fully an extrovert. Kind of got elements of both there, and sometimes one comes out, sometimes the other comes out. But ultimately, it still doesn't matter. You still need to do the same kinds of things. You still need to kind of get out there in the wider UX world in multiple ways. You still need to talk with people. It's not about where you get your energy; it's just what you have to do. And if you don't want to do that, getting out there and interacting with people and meeting people and making connections, then that's kind of probably the single biggest reason you would not want to be a freelancer. If you're willing to do it, whether or not you like it, that's really, you can do it. You can be a freelancer if you choose to. So, we're all puzzling over a little bit, is remote work forever? And for me, this remote thing has been pretty rough. I have made a freelance. I really enjoy travel. I really enjoy travel for work. I find like, my happy place, my great reset, is to just pop into a new environment where my mind is so busy trying to figure out, how can I get coffee? Where can I find food? Maybe, I just want to go to a grocery store and get some breakfast for tomorrow morning. Where can I go? And by the way, when I'm traveling, I I do try to like not just eat out in restaurants all the time, because it's just not very healthy. So when you travel a lot, I often am looking for the grocery store, looking for the best grocery store to go to get my meals, make sure my hotel has a refrigerator and microwave. But in a way, kind of that's the happy place too, is kind of maintaining the same food that I eat, more or less. I mean, sure, I can go out sometimes, but kind of maintaining a regular structure. But anyway, my happy place really is kind of that high touch research, where it's not using, let's say, a product like user testing, which is a great product, but they're not often going to create like a custom research plan around it. I mean, they would do things internally, and the client may use them, and the researcher will come in and do a little bit, with them, but it's not kind of this really custom research that I like to do. And so going into these places, meeting new people, not being sure where anything is. I don't know where the bathroom is, whatever office building I'm in for the day. But it doesn't matter. I find for me, that keeps my mind focused, and kind of gives me something to chew on as I go through the day. And I find it like a great mental reset, which has made when I wasn't traveling for COVID. I have traveled a ton recently, and even last summer as well. But I did find it a little unsettling, because it was something that I was used to, and I really enjoyed, kind of that extroverted side of me. Really enjoyed being able to meet with people regularly, talk with people in person, and not having that, certainly I found was a great loss. I just find that research, in person, is most rewarding. I feel like when when I did do a lot of remote research, through COVID, and but I felt like I was talking through a tin can sometimes. A lot of my findings aren't just what they do, but their facial expressions. Understanding how they react to something, probing about something where just watching what they do isn't enough. And sure, there's webcams, there's Zoom, and so on, and I absolutely have leveraged them. I've even done some hybrid studies in COVID, where there's people that are perhaps immunocompromised, this is pre-vaccine, weren't comfortable coming in, were older adults, were high risk groups. So then, okay, I do an in-person study, and I would, and by the way, and I'll talk about doing that safely, but simultaneously, I would. I would be able to kind of do both. And I did, in empathy and UX design, which is my most recent LinkedIn Learning class, had a couple others that were contracted, and are on pause until I can get out to their filming studio. But basically, I'm on right before COVID, in December it came out, talking about the acoustics are not the same. And I kind of said, hey, you know what, I said this right before COVID, and tested it out the other way. And yeah, I agree with what I said before. So in terms of safely doing research during COVID, I mean, absolutely, I was involved in some discussions on social media, like is it morally acceptable to go out there and do this research in person? I really did feel like I had a safe protocol. I wrote 3 blog posts about this, which back in May and July of last year, in terms of kind of safe practices and wide open spaces and good and when both of you are wearing a mask, how do you make recordings in a good way? And like I was like 15, 20 feet apart in like wide open ventilated spaces and so on. Anyway, got a lot of blog posts about that. I won't say any more about that. This year, I've been only recruiting vaccinated participants for studies as a matter of safety, assuming I don't think it's going to bias my studies, and by and large, that has worked out pretty well too. And still following semi what I did before, not quite as much. So in terms of whether place will matter again, I mean, you look at job posts like this. This is local to me in the DC area. They say this will be a long-time contract opportunity until the world returns to normal, and remain fully remote for now. I think that's what's going to happen. Certainly there's more that can be done remotely, absolutely, but I don't think we're going to a fully remote world, particularly in UX, where people and place do matter. It's not just a heads down kind of job, no matter what kind of role you're in. So, but I do think that there'll be less. So full-time jobs may not be 5 days a week. And that's true also with contract work as well. I mean, certainly some of my contracts, particularly local contracts, I had to go in a lot for that. And often I felt like this is silly. I don't really need to be here. And I think that might go away, particularly in contract work. But also, certainly in full-time jobs, it could be 2-3 days a week. These are the heads up weeks. Um, so, I also believe that being flexible is a key to workplace happiness. That is, being flexible with everything you do. This is true, in freelance work. This is also true, really, in any UX work. I'm talking specifically about my role as a researcher, but certainly. I think being flexible gives you a successful career no matter what aspect of UX you're in. And talking about those puzzle pieces, being flexible, I found has allowed me to fit in different puzzle pieces. I allow buffer in every possible way that I can, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And I found by being kind of flexible and adaptable, I become the puzzle piece that fits into something when needed. I kind of parachute in, do my thing as a freelancer, and then come out. But again, it's only possible by being flexible and not being too rigid, really, in any way, shape, or form. One thing that I really try to do is build in buffer time. I kind of work under the assumption that I'm not trying to fill every moment of my calendar. In fact, I would try to take on a research project no more than like every third week if I could. That said, then everything like projects kind of there's a curve to the project, and what I would say is any project is going to have some preliminary work, not going to take that much time necessarily, kind of intros and so on. Then it kind of ramps up, and the ramp up could be a week, it could be a month, it could be several months, whatever, and then it tails down again. And in my small project world, I kind of say, well, I want the intense part to only be once every 3 weeks. That said, I end up being, fully busy a lot of the time. I mean, at this moment, I'm mostly used up, in terms of my hours, through the end of September. Typically, I try to stay, 3-4 weeks ahead of the game, when possible. That said, I've got little buckets of time that I kind of can squeeze things in here and there, and I try to keep those buckets available. So even while I say, well, I'm not really available for work, if someone says, hey, I really need you for a 2-day project, for a 3-day project, I'm like, well, I got one right here for you. And by doing that, I feel like I get to not be no. And I've said, and it kills me to do this, I've said no to projects, 4 times in the last month, 5 times, or maybe 5 times the last month, just because they were too big. And I was like, I can't, I don't, even with my buffer, I can't take that on. And I was very disappointed. Just today, there was a project in, I think, 4 weeks. And I was like, and they're like, well, this has a 70% chance of coming through. We don't know for sure. And I was like, I can't take that on because I can't commit to something if you can't commit to me. So, it's not a perfect world, but certainly I feel like, I found my footing for the most part. I still travel. I've traveled 5 out of the last 7 weeks. I'm traveling the next 2 weeks. And then actually the week after that is an in-person UXPA conference, which I have 2 talks at, and I kept thinking it's going to be canceled or going to go virtual. It hasn't. But anyway, so I've got, I've been in person a lot, but always trying to make flexible travel plans, always building in many hours of buffer. I have slept on floors in small airports when I was stuck in the airport. I've gotten snowstorms. I've gotten all sorts of stuff. Bad weather. A bird hits an airplane. You name it. I've experienced it. But I have not missed any work because of my travel plans. I've been exhausted, but I haven't missed any work because I have kept things flexible and added just tons of buffer on every side possible. And flexible research timing too. So, basically I try to never schedule more than 5 hours of sessions, typically 5 sessions, they're often an hour, in a day. That often means my day ends by maybe 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock even, sometimes depending on when I start. And why? Because I just don't think that you should be knocking yourself out no matter what you do. I try to every day. I'll talk about this shortly. I'll do an hour of exercise, and try to fit and make sure to fit that in. And but basically, by having this flexible research time, by having only 5 sessions, when there's an emergency, when I can't do that exercise, I can always say, okay, you know what, it's fine. We can something's running late, no big deal. We can slide it over here because we're not like super tight pack, every moment of the time, every moment of the day. And I really kind of would recommend that you try to whatever extent you have control, whether freelancer or as an employee. You certainly want to kind of always think through, how do I not pack my schedule totally, because it will get packed. But don't start in a packed situation, because then you overflow. And when you overflow and you get overwhelmed, then work is no fun at all. And if work is no fun, well, it's what you do. 40 hours a week or whatever you do. It's just not good. It's not good for anything. It's not good for mental health. It's not good for physical health. So, I allow for adaptable research materials. I often moderate a study when I do it from a test plan that is in a Google Doc. And if I won't print it out. I will print it out as a backup in case the internet goes down or whatever. But I do. Or my computer goes down. That actually happened in a study 2 weeks ago. That wasn't good. But build in flexible materials. So if a client says, "Hey, we need to make a change," okay, it's fine. I'm on client side or I'm traveling. I need to run and find a printer. I'll just plan to moderate from that Google Doc. And I'll remember to let things go. I actually just posted something on LinkedIn about why this took me about half my career. That's since 1994. How did it take me so long to figure it out? But half my career before I really felt like I could let things go. And ultimately, I feel like I'm in it for the fun. I'm not in it to save the world. I certainly like to do good in the world, but I can't put my too much emotional energy into saving the world all the time. Find good projects, find good people, but let it go. If things will be successful or not successful, you do your best, and that's good enough. Anyway, I just wrote a little piece on LinkedIn, I think yesterday or maybe 3 days ago. And also, I really believe that happiness is keeping your UX work going even when you're not getting paid. But that doesn't mean working for free. If you say, hey, someone said I can just work for free, to get experience, and they're making a profit off me, that kind of bothers me. If they say, well, we're going to train you, we're going to give you an internship, we're going to help you learn along the way, we're going to put a lot of investment into helping you learn, that's a different story. But just kind of work for free, that's not so good. But if you do find you have free time, and this is true, as a freelancer, it's also been true for me as a consultant. There's times when I've been a consultant working for companies, and the work kind of slows down. But figure out a way, whether if you're on the clock, if you're an employee on the clock, if you're a freelancer off the clock, just to keep learning. There's so many ways you can learn out there. Through presentations. Certainly, there's a lot of that. There's LinkedIn Learning. There's a lot of other companies out there that where you can learn by video. You can learn by podcast. You can learn by blogs. There's so many ways that you can keep learning and use your time and spend your time. And even if you use your full 40 hours or whatever you work, if you spend another hour or 2 or 3 every week just learning something new and kind of growing your UX knowledge and your skills, that you'll be all the better for it. And get involved in UX organizations. I talked about UXPA and why that was so meaningful to me. This is back in 2013. I wrote this in UX Magazine. and I still think it's true today, is get involved, whatever it is, whatever local meetups you have. Right now they will be virtual, most likely, but it doesn't matter. Just connect with people. I mean, ultimately, I really believe that it's that loose association of socialization. There's loose connect. It's not your dear family and friends that are going to find you your freelancing gig or even your next job. If you're in a W-2 job, ultimately it's that loose association of UX peers. So find your people, through meetups, whether they're focused in design or research or both, or really any aspect of UX. Or any, there could be industry meetups too if you're very invested in a particular industry. I tend to be and like to be industry agnostic. The truth is I've probably done about half my work in federal and state government, just because that's kind of become a specialty. I don't advertise myself that way, but people kind of know that I do a lot of government UX work. So I did federal for a number of years, a lot. Last couple of years, I've done mainly state. I'm much more state than federal. But anyway, I also do probably the other half of my work is more commercial work. Whatever commercial, nonprofit, financial kind of work. But if you are invested in a particular industry and want to be that one and just really enjoy that industry, by all means, there are meetups kind of, and your people may be that industry as much as you can be the UX person within that industry at the meetup. So when you do kind of make these connections, when you do, really kind of, join these organizations, these meetups and so on, really go to the events, go to speaking or talks. There's sometimes just dedicated networking events. I've really enjoyed leading speed networking events, kind of like speed dating, where you meet other UXers, very quickly for like a minute, and then you try to make some loose social connections that way. And find your virtual community too. I mean, the UX hashtag is, no matter what social media platform you're using, the UX hashtag is probably there. And basically use that hashtag, post with that hashtag. I mean, certainly there's UXR, UX research, or UX design, or whatever. The UX hashtag is kind of pretty broadly used. It's so simple. It's pretty broadly used across all social media platforms, and you can find conversations, join those conversations, engage in community virtually. Certainly, you can do that anytime, COVID or not. And be a leader. I really found, I found by helping people, I ended up helping myself. Really, being a UXPA leader, just got to know lots of people, had a purpose at events, and really I found it really helped my freelancing business. I got involved in it really because I needed to have colleagues. It was right about the same time that I became a freelancer probably a year later, that I really started getting involved in UXPA and such. But it really, everything kind of dovetailed together, which was not necessarily what I realized initially, but certainly something I found value in. Share your thoughts. Others will find you. I blog periodically on LinkedIn, what they called Pulse previously. I don't know if they still do, but I also have my own WordPress blog on my lebsontech.com website, and I also have written things for other people, other publications, and so on. And on my website, actually, I have a bunch of links of other things I've written in addition to the blog and what's on LinkedIn. But if you do blog, people will find you, and it also gives you something to post on social media. And basically, through all this, I really find, that you kind of create. I feel like I've created my own serendipity, basically by throwing all those balls in the air, not knowing which thing you write will interest someone, intrigue someone, for freelance work, not knowing, what's going to make the difference, what conversation is really going to matter. But really, I feel like you really do kind of, create your own goodness from what you do, from kind of getting out there, from connecting with people, and ultimately, that kind of connectedness is I think where you can find happiness. But beyond work, in good times and bad, I'd also encourage you, to find your happy place. I had to do some kind of soul searching in COVID where I was way more at home than I'd ever been in my work career, as someone who traveled. And I certainly say I hope we're done with lockdowns. Even, I mean, there's a lot of mask mandates coming now. Hopefully we're done with lockdowns, but I don't know if that's true. And in COVID, slide across there, as you can see, basically where was my happy place? And I found that I ended up, buying more serious winter gear than I ever had before, so I could spend way more time outside. I spent lots and lots of time in the forest, in the trail, a couple houses down from me that I could enter. I needed more sensory things, like working at home. So I got a lot of scented candles, to say, okay, I need more sensory. I found I need more visual. So I got a Samsung frame that I mounted over my desk, and I put on like beach cams. So like even in the winter, I could pretend I had a window where I was looking at the beach. I got I found, my happy place was my own biometrics. So I got an Aura ring to kind of track biometrics. I just got one of the newer, then newer to 2020 Oculus, and to kind of, really like explore Google Maps, not even gaming. Got some more fancier gym equipment when I couldn't go to the gym, in addition to the running, and I wasn't swimming. I swim a lot and wasn't able to swim, or I didn't feel comfortable swimming indoors at that point. But anyway, I that was my soul searching, and ultimately find your happy place. If there's going to be lockdowns or not, find the stuff. Just figure yourself out in a way that you may never have had to do before, because you've probably spent more time at home, probably than perhaps ever before for you too. Just find your happy place. And I feel like now, if there is another lockdown, I feel way more prepared, emotionally now, by finding like, oh, these are all the things that made me happy. Okay, I'm totally outside of work. But it's the work happy plus the not work happy equals the happy gestalt. You just kind of feel, okay, now I'm good. So with that, I'll just kind of close my thoughts and then take some questions. Basically feel free to look at LinkedIn Learning if you have access, and if you don't have access, just feel free to reach out to me, and I'll give you one of the codes that they gave me. And again, until I run out of them, and I think I've got more codes than people who are on here, so we're probably good. Whoever wants those 3-month gift certificates, assuming they work. But also, feel free to check out the book if you win the book, or you don't. Feel free to check that out as you would like. And again, feel free to connect. My social media platforms that are easy to connect with, and I mainly use for work, are Twitter and LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me those ways, and to reach out to me. LinkedIn, actually, between the two is better. But my email address, Cory@lebsontech.com, is pretty widely available. So you can email me as well if you want those codes or otherwise. So with that, we have a couple minutes, I think, for questions. I do see the questions here in our list. Raymond, should I just run through the questions and kind of give some quick answers to each of them?
I think it sounds good. Yes. And others, they may submit others as you start to answer them.
Okay, cool. So let's see what I see here I guess they're ranked. Are there any good freelance sites to use for UX research? Not really. I mean, we've got UXR.work certainly as one such site. But there aren't. It's not like there's that much out there, which is why I guess we have a niche there. I mean, also, where can you find freelance work? You can find it on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a jobs area. That jobs you can filter by contract work. So, and that's probably one such way. When I'm light on work, I actually skim through the posts of my connections to see if anybody. I often filter by research just to be like, oh, I wonder if any of my connections are looking for work. I do make make some business out of being an overflow person, which is someone says, oh, I got this work, and oops, I'm a consultant. I bid on too much work. I got it all. So in that, some of my colleagues I'm connected with actually do post help, and I'm like, okay, hi, I'm here. I can help you, and sometimes that works out. How do I protect myself from non-payment or slow payment? Slow payment is often that's the case. In terms of I typically just try to be clear on what a client agrees to. I mean, often it's 30 days is the most normal. Sometimes it bleeds over that, not too much. I only once since 2008 did I not get paid. And that's because the company went bankrupt after I did the research for them. But it was a small project. It wasn't, and I actually ended up kind of getting like a little, I don't know, third of what I thought I was going to get. But honestly, that was once in, I can live with those odds. That was once since 2008. Certainly there's been one or two when it's been like 2 or 3 months when they're like, oh no, we don't have cash flow. I mean, I won't use those clients. I won't work with those clients again if something is totally like, we agreed on X, and it's if you're good on X and it's a little bit late, not a big deal. If you're on X and it's 6 months late, which did happen once, like, well, I don't know that we want to work together again. But by and large, it never happens. It doesn't happen. I feel like I have good connections with those that I work with. And the connections mean a lot. It's not just transactional. It's also it's also working with my peers, and I feel like it doesn't really happen too much. Or I mean, really, there were like 2 instances that were bad in all. One of which I did get paid. One of which, like I said, I only got a little piece. What is something you wish you knew when you first started your freelance career? I would say the answer to that is let it go. Just don't take everything so seriously. Don't take clients so seriously. I mean, do what they want you to do, but just don't take everything so seriously. I wish I could have told myself that, even 20 years ago, just enjoy the work, just enjoy it. And that's where the place I am now is just much more, I enjoy the work. Do I have any steady gigs that provide regular work? No. I have in the past had really big contracts. And I do have clients that come back. I have I only make commitments of like per project usually, but I do have the clients who are like, oh, we really enjoyed you on this project. We have this other team in this other state. We told you about them, or we told them about you. Can you do work for them? So in some ways, it almost feels like 2 different projects as opposed to any kind of steady gig, because it's no commitment. It's just like, oh, okay, whatever. And I've this year I've had a client who did that a couple times, which was nice. Each project was only like 2 or 3 weeks, but that happened like 5 times, over the course of 2 years, or maybe like 12 months. That was nice. It was nice that it happened. I hadn't expected it, but yeah, it was nice. There are very few entry-level positions in UX. Volunteer to get more experience. Volunteering is good, yes, but volunteering like for for a nonprofit that you support personally, like you give your charitable dollars to as well. Certainly that kind of volunteering is good. If you're volunteering and they're making money off you, that doesn't feel very good. Certainly if there's a way that you can be low paid, and they're investing time and energy into you, then it's different. Then that time and energy is like money. It's like training. But if it's just like you do the work, and by the way, we're not going to pay you, or we're going to like give you like a stipend but not a salary, then one, that's often illegal too, particularly because you can't, like the IRS would not want people to be taken advantage of like that, and certainly in the States, there's all kind of legal issues there. That said, if there's a learning transaction going on, then things are certainly different. Is UX research applicable to local, state, and federal government? Yes, I've done probably, like I say, half my work has been federal and state. I have not done municipal projects, mainly every now and again. I do. I'm actually doing one project next week that's municipal, but by and large, the work I do is state and federal. What departments? I mean, whoever's making. I mean, typically for me, it's whoever's making the website. So it says cybersecurity there as an example. I would say not cybersecurity. I'd say it's more likely, the Office of Communications, the Office of Finance, if they have a financial website, the Office of, whatever office it is. There's also intranet. I'm doing an intranet project for a state government where they have an intranet site for their employees. It's and anybody needs research and whatever it is. In terms of federal, I've done tons of federal agency work, with all sorts of agencies. But basically, it's often federal. It's a public-facing website or transactional effort. Does contract work leading to have to move a lot abruptly? I basically decided, since I've been here in Silver Spring, Maryland, since 2004, I've made the decision that that place comes first, and I will not move permanently for a contract. I mean, that said, if the economy tanked here and I had no work, obviously there's a number of decisions that would need to go on then. But I make the decision I'll travel anywhere. I'll travel a lot, if needed. But I do not want to move, and I believe that it's unnecessary. I mean, there's remote work and there's also travel. I would say if you want place and you're in a place where there's a lot of work, like basically any major metropolitan area, you probably can stay there. That said, certainly the bigger metropolitan areas have more research work in person than probably more suburban, rural, kind of particularly out there kind of areas. But that said, again, there's remote work. Whether that lasts or not, we'll see. Is the U.S. government starting to see the value of UX? I feel like every little piece is different. I find yes. I mean, at least those that I work with are already very engaged in UX, or they wouldn't ask for research in the first place. I don't make the pitch for UX. I make the pitch for me doing the research they want done anyway. So I think yes. There's certainly a lot in U.S. federal government. There's a lot of contract work. There's certainly hotspots to be in person. Hotspot question is hotspot these days. But certainly here in the DC area, there's a lot of work. Denver, there's a lot of federal work. I think there's some in Atlanta. Yes, if you're interested in that kind of work, there is work to be found now remotely. Probably if you want to do U.S. federal, there might be stuff even that requires clearance, which I've had to do at certain times. And then you really got to be in person because you can't be doing it on your computer. You can't be doing it in your house. So kind of balancing that all out and where you live. What's my background? My background in 1991, I started college. 1992, I found UX research. It wasn't called that. It was human factors and usability and all sorts of other terms. But I kind of found my love then. Went to graduate school, stuck with it. So I've been doing this a really long time. Which it wasn't cool when I started. It was kind of this weird thing no one ever heard of before. Now I've watched it grow up around me, which has been pretty awesome. It's like I think of like H.G. Wells, the Time Machine, but the movie where they show him kind of spinning around his little time machine, and the world just kind of builds up and builds up and builds up. That's how I feel like about user research. I have been industry agnostic basically my whole career. I did 1 year stint in-house in a distance learning company. I spent 3 years working as an internal consultant at a medical school. But by and large, of those 20 to 25 years I've been doing research, I've been really industry agnostic. Granted, I've been doing more government work just because that's what's got presented to me. But yeah. yeah, and I saw one about how do you keep in touch with past clients, and I would say my answer to that is just reach out, say hi, socialize. It's not about, oh, what can you do for me? What can you do for me? It's about let's stay in touch. I mean, that's it. Stay in touch. Don't. It's not everything doesn't have to be a transaction. Yeah, that's about. I'll end with that.
Cory, thank you so much. You shared so much good information and advice. That was wonderful. We had great questions too. Thank you so much to those who submitted questions and upvoted them.